Hello, hello. It's October, and you know what that means? Halloween is nigh. It's one of my favorite holidays, and in celebration, I am reading thriller and horror books all month long to celebrate the intriguing, the spooky, the weird. And then I get to share all these books with y'all. So, if you are new here, my name is Larissa, and I run the African American Resource Center for the Tulsa City County Library. And every other October, rather, I have been reading spooky books by Black and African American authors to sort of highlight those books because it's a genre that we don't see very often when it comes to Black and African American authors. But because I just like these books and it's an excuse to highlight them, I'd like to share them with you all. So that's what I'm doing all month. You can check me out every Thursday at noon this month with a new book chat. So let's dive right in. So this week, I read The Spite House by Johnny Compton. So I am somebody who absolutely judges books by their covers. For sure, I'll read a book that doesn't have an intriguing cover, but I will check out a book. I am more likely to check out a book if I like the cover. And this just looks spooky and weird, and so I picked it up. And I'm glad that I did. So, The Spite House by Johnny Compton. It is a debut novel. It's his first book. And you can tell a little bit, but he's incredible. And so I'm super interested to see where he goes next. What about this one? So, The Spite House follows a man named Eric and his two daughters, Des and Stacy. At the beginning of the novel, we find out that they are on the run. We don't quite yet know why they're on the run. We do find out, but at the beginning we don't know. But we do know that they're from Maryland and they are heading down south to Texas, where Eric's deceased grandparents used to live, and they have a house. While they've been on the run, Eric has been taking a bunch of odd jobs, some of them dangerous, most of them, if not all of them, under the table. And so he's looking for something a little bit more sustainable, which is kind of hard when you are on the run. So one day they're at a hotel. He's looking online for some gigs, and he finds an ad for someone to move into temporary housing down in a place called DeGener, Texas. It feels sketchy, but it also feels too good to pass up. This house is considered the most haunted house in Texas. That's the name, that's the phrase that it's given. And the owner is looking for proof of paranormal activity. The payout is a six-figure payout, and whoever accepts or gets the job gets to live rent free in this home. And so going down to a haunted house, would you do it? I wouldn't, but Eric does because he feels like he has no other choice. And again, a six-figure payout would do wonders for their circumstances. Money is running low. There doesn't seem to be much of a choice. So he takes his daughters, Des, who's about 18 and is pretty much like, this is a ridiculous idea. We shouldn't do it. Des and Stacy, who's about 10 or so, he takes them down and they view this home. Eunice, who is the owner, she's got a pretty selfish reason for inviting them into this house. And it is indeed haunted. It's the sort of place that takes and it makes people disappear. And the people who do come out of this house don't seem to be whole again, if you will. That sounds dramatic, but that's the way that this house works. And so Eunice has an interesting history in this house, and her family has a sort of tragic interaction with the old owners of this house, and she wants to find out what's happening, what paranormal things are living in this space. Eric is not a non-believer. He has had experiences with the supernatural in the past, and Stacy, who I don't want to spoil it by telling what's really up with her, but she's had a brush with death, and that makes this house really, really active. And so Eunice has spent time interviewing other paranormal researchers, if you will, and none of them really believed. And so they were not quite able to get out of this house what Eric and Stacy are able to. And so as this book goes on, we learn about the history of this house and some of the really tragic things that happened there and in this space and on that land. And you find out that there's so much anger and fear that lingers in this house, and it's out to get the people who live here. I don't want to spoil it. It's one of those books where you have to read it to, get it, right? To get all of the things that Johnny Compton wants you to get. So I don't want to tell you too much. But I will say that I liked this book. It didn't fully answer every single question that I had, and I found that the multiple points of view kind of mess with the pacing a little bit. But Johnny Compton is an incredible writing, and I thought this work was wholly intriguing. As I was reading, it took me a little while to get to the point of the book. That is, not the point so much, but it took me a little while to get or understand the themes that come with this book, but I got there. To me, it seemed to be sort of a study in the way that grief and that anger and that fear can fester, the way that it can seep through and move past generations, right? Like it seeps through generations. Eunice's ancestors, the owner of the house, she did something. They did something terrible to a group of men during war, and that caused a curse, if you will. They put a curse on her family. And that curse kind of ensures that everybody in that family, especially Eunice, who's the last of her family, that they walk through the world in this sort of fearful state. They're scared of, they are afraid of death and what comes with it because of this curse. Eric's grandfather and the lessons that his grandfather taught him, combined with the mystery surrounding Stacy, it leaves Eric very, very anxious and intent on protecting his children. And sometimes that intense of a need to protect can be dangerous. And so we see some danger in Eric and what he's willing to do, or even what he's willing to accept in order to make sure that his daughters can continue to live and thrive. And then there are these entities that live and are, dare I say, are thriving in this house, this spite house. And so it's called a spite house, and it's a house so called because it literally had been built out of spite. The person who built it, their land was sold out from under him for reasons, and instead of getting the, instead of being able to get that land back, he built a house on this stretch of land that he eventually acquired somehow. And it took over this space. It was this tall, ugly thing that he literally built because he wanted to stick it to the people who ended up buying his land and wouldn't sell it back. And so this spite house, literally built by a spiteful human being, that spite festered inside the man and then the children he raised once they were orphaned. And so anyone who walks into this house is susceptible to this feeling. So like I said, I really feel like it was this study in like how when you don't deal with your emotions, it can cause harm to yourself and it can cause harm to other folks. A dramatic example, but an example nonetheless. So like I said, long story short, don't sit in your anger and in your spite because it lingers and it contaminates and it ruins. Um, like I said, it sounds dramatic, but it's how you get the spite house, which I recommend. Um, so that's it for this week. I didn't want to give too much. I for sure recommend it. It's well written and it's I was pulled in. I was really pulled in. So if you are someone who kind of likes descriptions of hauntings and that kind of spooky stuff, it's for you. Next week, I am reading a book called Jackal by Erin Adams, which literally the first chapter starts with the disappearance of a little black girl. I'm already halfway in, y'all, and I'm rooted, so don't miss out. I will see you all next week with my chat on Jackal, and I hope you pick up The Spite House, available at your local library. Until then, bye.